Joining us now is Sydney Loney, an award-winning journalist and deputy editor at locallove.ca, the United Way Greater Toronto's digital magazine that focuses on local changemakers, simple ways to give back in your community, and much more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You wrote a recent feature on domestic violence and the support women receive when they enter the legal system, told from the perspective of one woman's experience. This was one of the site's best performing features, particularly on November 25th, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Why did locallove.ca take on such a difficult and weighty subject if you're typically all about good news?
That's a good question. We do cover a lot of good news,
yes.
But we also, part of our mandate at Local Love is to raise awareness about issues, and our feeling is that if people don't know about the issues in their community, then they can't do anything to change them. So it's fairly regular that we do tackle heavier topics.
So then take us through what you learned about domestic violence in the GTA. How big an issue is it?
It's funny because I've written about women's issues for many years, and I had no idea how big a problem it is. I didn't, you never hear about it. So domestic violence is one of the biggest forms of violence against women in Canada, and it's not on our radar. We don't talk about it. And so once I started diving into the story, I fell down the rabbit hole a little bit because I just felt people needed to know this, and I didn't know about it. That means probably a lot of people don't know about it. And once I talked to Christina as well, I felt her story had to be shared. So it kind of went from there.
Well, more than a quarter of all reported crimes in 2016 involved family violence. That's stats from the Public Health Agency
That's right.
of Canada. So then why is domestic violence so underreported?
Part of it is because women don't tend to come forward. So we don't actually know the true extent of the problem. It's very hard to go to the police the first time, let alone the stat is it takes 7 times for women to leave 7 times before they actually leave for good. So it's very hard to get out of those situations. And then once we get to the legal system, there are so many barriers for women to even get justice and to get through. And so it's kind of, no one talks about it. No one really knows what's going on.
Well, I can understand if you're living with somebody, you have children, something happens, you know that if you report it, you then have to go back there unless you're ready to leave. Yeah. And even then, when they leave, often I've heard stories and seen interviews where they're terrified that the person will come after them because there's different levels. So it's really a catch-22 for the women.
Yeah, they're in a terrible situation. It's a lot of it's fear. The reason is not for not leaving is fear, but there are so many reasons. It could be immigration. It could be money. It's very hard too to just pick up your life and go with nothing. You've got career, you've got uprooting your children, and there are also the threats. So in this case, her abuser threatened to kill her and come after her, and she said she knew he was capable of that, and she was terrified that. And it's the most dangerous time for a woman in a domestic violence situation is when she leaves.
Yeah.
So it's,
Let me ask you something. The whole Me2 movement.
Yes.
So somebody had to be brave enough to step out. And then there was just a torrent of women who followed.
That's right.
And maybe men too, right? Do you think that that's potentially something that could happen in this, that we will somehow get to a point where the balance will tip and women will say enough? And somebody will come out, it will be high profile, and then it will just start.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I certainly hope so. And I think it will take that exposure of people talking about it, and then it's sort of the snowball effect of that whole, the Me2 movement, where suddenly you realize how big a problem it is and how many women's lives it affects. And women across all backgrounds. I think that's another misconception, is we don't realize it happens to everybody. And we probably know someone who it's happening to, and yet we don't know it's happening. I mean, this woman hid it from her family, and for 10 years, no one knew.
And probably they don't confide in their friends either because they're afraid
and they're ashamed. She said she was so deeply ashamed that this was happening to her. And also you become a different person. She said, after this started happening, she was sort of a shell of the person she used to be. So she had no confidence anymore. She was always living under sort of this umbrella of fear, and it was very hard to get out of that.
Well, I took something positive out of your article, and that was that with Christina, when she was alone in the witness box, 4 police officers came from their night shifts directly there, straight to court, just to support her. And when she went to family court to prevent Jake from going near their children, her lawyer never left her side. So there is and she says it was that support that saved her.
Exactly.
Where would she have been without that support?
She said she would never have made it out. She would have probably ended up, if it hadn't been for the police officer in the beginning, and she had people every step along the way, and finding that support network in the court system, she said she probably wouldn't, she believes she wouldn't be alive. And that's what she told me. And I think having that network and knowing it exists and supporting those organizations that do help women in these situations is so important. And people need to know that the problem is there in the first place. And Christina is remarkable because she is speaking out and telling her story, and she was so generous with it and trusting it to Local Love because she wants to help other women. So she repeatedly said to me, if she could, just show one other woman that it is possible to escape, it is possible to get out. There is support out there. Then it's worth it.
And I think it's also because we have a lot of preconceived ideas. We misjudge people. I mean, this is a woman who had a happy childhood, went to U of T, traveled, earned a master's degree, had a good job in a position of authority. Domestic violence started slowly with her, and she forgave. She said it wouldn't happen again. And that's what we hear a lot. But it can happen in any social strata. This is not something that is going away.
No, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what if you know someone and you suspect it's going on, or what if it's happening to you yourself?
Right.
What is the sort of basic information that we should know?
And there actually is a lot of support out there that we just don't know about. So actually at the bottom of the story, we listed a number of hotlines and helplines where people can get help sort of instantly the moment they need to talk to someone, they need out of a situation or they're afraid. And then there are other organizations like the Schleifer Clinic who can help you once you get a few steps further, navigate the system and sort of get justice. So there are lots of things in place. But really I think just knowing that there are 24-hour helplines available.
So here it is, it's 10 o'clock at night, you've been beaten, whatever, he's gone out for a beer, and you're thinking,
gotta go.
What do I do, and will somebody tell me that I will be safe? Me and my children will be safe, that there is a way?
Yes, that's right. Women need that reassurance. They need to know that if they leave, they're not stepping out into the unknown, and it's such a terrifying moment. I mean, to just sort of pick up and just go, and also know that he will probably try to come after you. And the important thing I think for women to know too is at these organizations they help build a safety plan for women, so everything changes: passwords, kids' school, where they go, get groceries. You have to sort of reconfigure your life, but there are people there who help you do that.
Now, while there's the Assaulted Women's Helpline, there's the National Domestic Violence Hotline, but you can also call 211.
That's right.
Anywhere across, which offers a variety of support services across Canada, from emergency assistance to counselling and daycare, and help is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in 100 different languages.
It's amazing.
That's huge.
Yep.
That's 211. We're all used to saying 311 to get information from the city, but 211 is available across Canada. Now, there's also... It is the giving season, and there is something that people can do right now to help women who are experiencing violence. There's also another article on locallove.ca from a different writer talking about what women's shelters really need. You tell us what they really need, because we want to give the right things.
That's right. And people so often don't know what to do. And of course, clothing is always useful. But then you think about those things that we take for granted every day. So toothpaste, deodorant, makeup for women who are going to job interviews, are going to meet with their lawyers, school supplies for children who've been uprooted and they're in these shelters. They try to give them a regular school day. Housewares, because women have to start over. So, everything from detergent to utensils to sheets, towels, all of those things, and basically everything that you would need to start a life over is what you would need.
I remember when we were working together, there was somebody whose sister worked at a shelter. So a lot of us would bring in stuff because you can't actually go and because they're hidden. They're not
for security
for security reasons. So we knew somebody, remember, and we would drop off clothes and stuff, and she would take it to her sister, and that way none of us knew where it was going.
But you can contact the organization to find out their policy to how to get things to the women, and everyone has their own way of doing it, but it can be done.
Now, Sydney, tell everyone how they can read your article and more.
This article and other great articles, and also how to donate to women's shelters are on locallove.ca.
Thank you very much for joining us today and talking about this difficult issue.
My pleasure.